Call it in the ring, brother. That's a line which carries a certain amount of reverence amongst pro wrestlers. The ability to subtly call spots on the fly or work a match around the live crowd responses is worn like a badge of honor in locker rooms worldwide. And indeed, one of the most important skills to learn in the entire profession. But what happens when those calls are just a little bit too loud or too close to a microphone? Well, it gives us, the fans, a fascinating insight into the inner workings of both the matches and the men and women having them. My name is Adam Cleary, and these are 10 wrestlers who gave advice we could clearly hear. Number 10, Chris Jericho. Unsurprising for the frontman of a band, Chris Jericho is one of the most vocal workers in history. Now that's no knock, because his shouts like "ask him" and "come on baby" have typically enhanced his matches over the years. At Survivor Series 2001 though, Jericho wanted to make sure that Rob Van Dam's pacing was spot on during the climactic Team WWF vs Alliance Elimination Showdown. At one point during the 5-on-5 battle, Jericho yelled "neckbreaker" at his peer. Sure enough, seconds later, the Canadian was blasting RVD with that very move. This wouldn't be the last time they called spots or shared advice though, as later Jericho also told Rob to slow down. He then followed that up with a quick "take it easy" comment. Jericho must have been keen to ensure that they didn't get overexcited, race through their work and mess up the near 45-minute match format for everyone else watching from the ring apron. Number 9, Becky Lynch. Remember the Stomping Grounds pay-per-view from June 2019? No, me neither. Anyway though, then Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch worked with Lacey Evans on the undercard, and for reasons I'm sure you do recall, the former needed to vocally work the latter through each spot. Moments of chatter included Lynch running Evans into all 4 turnbuckles, and after the third, she paused slightly to remind Lacey to eat this instead of putting the brakes on to reverse it. Later, Bex also called her sassy foe to perform a reversal back elbow sequence, then, well, bang, it happened. The most interesting thing here is that some of Becky's direction was necessary. Lacey was visibly inexperienced at the time and likely needed to be guided through the entire bout. Still, the fact that one could hear Lynch's calls over the live crowd and commentary does show you how loud they were. Number 8, Sasha Banks. Now, this is the most recent example on the entire list, and it comes from TLC 2020. Specifically, the SmackDown Women's title match between Sasha Banks and Carmella that ended via submission. Before both women got to that stage though, they needed to build up enough heat for Mella so that it would feel satisfying when Banks took her down. Knowing that, Sasha encouraged her peer to try out some dirty tricks throughout the match. For example, while she was still dragging the heel to her feet, Banks told Carmella to slap her as hard as she could. WWE's production truck got right up close to Sasha's face as she called for the strike, meaning you can both see and hear it. That did telegraph things, obviously, but it was still fascinating. Seeing the chain of command play out and how Banks knew that they could use that kind of aggression to tell their story was great. The only downside is that it might have taken some fans out of the moment, but not me. I am never in the moment. Number 7, Big Show. WWE recycled some familiar spots at the 2021 Royal Rumble. One of them was a gang beatdown on Bobby Lashley that stopped the physically dominant heel from running right over the top of everyone in the ring, which, as you all know, is something that you see at pretty much every single Royal Rumble ever. But in 2004, it was Big Show's turn, and he wasn't in any mood to blindly thump his way through the group of stars working his elimination. So, Show called out what was going to happen next from the mat. This odd moment was highlighted by the Giant loudly yelling, "Cena first, then RVD." He was lining up, you see, who was going over the top rope first. When the big man fought back to his feet, he tossed John Cena out as planned. Then Show dumped Van Dam to the floor, exactly like he'd called it. I mean, you could argue this was just some big mean heel telling all the tiny, pathetic, minuscule men how he was going to ruin their evening, but also, on the other hand, no he wasn't. Number 6, Samoa Joe. Now, you are not alone if, like the aforementioned Stomping Grounds match, you have entirely memory holed what happened at Money in the Bank 2019. That pay-per-view had a short US title match between Rey Mysterio and the champ Samoa Joe, and it lasted, much like your dad, less than 2 minutes. Afterwards though, Joe was booked to kick the living out of Rey, and his son Dominic was supposed to watch at ringside. The only problem was that Dom here camped himself in the aisleway, making it impossible for Joe to do his torture routine to the hard cam. That's why he told the ref to make sure that Dominic went to the other side of the ring so they could get the required angle. Unfortunately, said referee made this super obvious. In fairness, he was only doing as instructed, but still it felt a little bit off. Kevin Dunn, in his infinite wisdom, choosing not to cut to a different camera angle and just letting this all play out on TV. Number 5, The Undertaker. Oh god, this is still so depressing. It was supposed to be an epic main event between Goldberg and The Undertaker at Super Showdown 2019, but by the end of it, every single fan watching at home was just sad and tired and hoping they would stop. A dream match turned into a nightmare when the ex-WCW fave got concussed on the ring post and Taker ran out of gas about 5 minutes in. By the time both of them stumbled to the end, we just were hoping that they were okay. Now if that sounds dramatic, then honestly rewatch Goldberg's scary jackhammer attempt on The Undertaker. Knowing straight away that he had made an almighty mess of it and probably trying to regain his bearings, Goldberg hesitated after botching the move. Thinking on his feet, or well, his back, Taker shouted, "Cover me." Before that, Goldberg had already told his mate to kick out. Both could tell that things weren't going well, but their different phrasing definitely stands out. Taker told Bill to take it home, yet Goldberg thought they should continue, and I just really wish I had never watched this. Number 4, John Cena. When Bruce Pritchard talks about wrestlers loudly calling spots in-ring on his podcast, he mentioned John Cena and repeatedly said that today's mics are way more sensitive than they once were. Still though, that excuse aside, WWE's creative guru and executive director thinks JC could have been more discreet and quiet about certain things. In particular at WrestleMania XV, when the whole world heard Cena talk Batista through some stuff during their World Heavyweight title cracker. It definitely wasn't discreet. John sold Big Dave's attempt to rip his arms clean off, but didn't want his peer to let go too soon. That's why he shouted, while facing the camera, for Batista to hold on. It gets better. Cena returned to selling and grimaced in pain, then paused it again to remind Batista to hit his back and shut down a comeback bid. Surely both guys must have known that they were facing the ringside cam at the time, but apparently they just didn't care. Number 3, Batista. Yes, here he is again. At the first Bragging Rights pay-per-view in 2009, and again, no, me neither, he was working as part of a four-way alongside The Undertaker, Charles Montgomery Punk, and Raymond Mysterio. Towards the end of the match, Taker hit Batista with a chokeslam, and the Animal seemingly immediately suffered an injury upon landing. There was a slight pause as the Phenom asked Batista, "You alright?" And no, came the answer. Then as Taker covered his opponent, Dave said, "You gotta hit me with the tombstone." He must have really been struggling, and The Undertaker knew it, but he did as asked and put Batista away quickly with his finish. This was a rare moment of reality between two friends who were working as enemies on screen. Taker's concerned expression visibly shows that he knew Batista was hurt, and he also did everything in his power to make sure the impact on that match-ending piledriver was as safe as it could be. Number 2, Brock Lesnar. I've got a typo. Brock Lesnar. Now you could call this advice, or you could call it one of the scariest times things almost boiled over inside a WWE ring. Put it this way, Brock Lesnar and Braun Strowman literally came to blows during a triple threat with Kane at the 2018 Royal Rumble, and absolutely nobody, and Adam Cleary means nobody, wanted to be in the middle of that. It all started when Braun smashed Brock with a super stiff knee to the head. Not wanting to back down, a ticked off Lesnar gave Strowman a receipt by blasting him in the noggin with a stiff punch of his own. Then, the Beast could be heard shouting, "Slow the f*** down." Thankfully, Braun did. Strowman later brushed this moment off as a heated exchange between two alpha males and nothing more. He said they didn't have any problems after that blow-up, but in fairness, if you watch that punch back, he probably has no idea what he was saying, or where he was, or what his name is, or anything really. Number 1, Shawn Michaels. Ric Flair has never made much of a secret about his lack of confidence towards the end of an incredible pro wrestling career. Between 2000 and 2008, the previously cocksure nature boy doubted himself more than any of his peers could believe. It's also telling that he had to be guided through in-ring psychology by Shawn Michaels. Their heart-wrenching clash at WrestleMania featured some big spots. In one of them, Michaels crashed on top of Flair with a big elbow drop from the top rope. Afterwards, fans watching at home could see and hear Shawn leave over Flair and say, "Stay down, take your time." HBK wanted the impending sweet chin music to have the maximum effect. These were some of the final in-ring moments of one of the most celebrated careers in the history of the industry. Well, until he rocked up in TNA 2 years later, but either way, HBK did not want them to be rushed.